I can't think of anything much more ridiculous than placing a hierarchy on emotion. You're supposed to be happy and excited and motivated at all times, right? Or you're doing something wrong. Except, no, it doesn't work that way. Feeling lazy or pissed off are both just as valid as anything else. The trick is finding positive ways to channel those emotions. Anger gets a particularly bad rap because it's often frightening to see and has a tendency to manifest in the worst ways possible, say attacking someone or breaking things you'll later wish you hadn't broken. When viewed as a positive emotion though, as more of a superpower than as something negative, anger can be very productive. That brings us directly to our list for today. Over the years, these 4 exercises have helped me many times in transforming a bad day into something awesome. What you'll notice about each of these here is they all share a few things in common. 1, they are power-based movements. The last thing you want to do when full of rage is hold back. These exercises allow you to put everything you have into every rep. 2, they require minimal time to warm up. If I'm angry and ready to throw something, I guarantee I'm not going to make my way through the warm-up required for heavy squats, for example. Some light band work is always recommended, but it shouldn't take more than a few minutes. 3, they are easily accessible. Again, this ties into our last point. It can't take a long time to get started. We need something that's easy to set up and get into fast. And finally, most importantly, number 4, the exercise cannot be technical and the risk for injury must be low. I can't stress this one enough. As great as it might sound to go do some heavy deadlifts, don't. You'll regret it. If you're full of rage, your form is going to suffer. We want the anger to act as a positive emotion, remember, and getting snapped up is definitely not positive. We could make an argument for getting angry before a 1-rep max attempt on special occasions, but that's a different topic entirely. We're talking about positive outlets for anger that's already there, not manifesting it for some other purpose. I've also found that exercises that are too intense tend to gas you out way too quick. When you're firing on all cylinders, you'd be surprised at how quickly you get winded. A great example I can give you is the explosive sled row movement you may have seen me doing recently. It's the one I got from old school Elliot Hulse. This one seems like a perfect fit. That's what I thought, but because the lungs, legs, and upper body are all already working so hard on every rep, you'll be left gasping for air much sooner than you'd like. This may not make much sense, as wearing ourselves out is what we want, but when your conditioning becomes a limiting factor way before everything else, you'll end up more angry because you weren't able to do more work, rather than glad that you got yourself winded. This last part means there's definitely some trial and error here. Lucky for us, I've been pissed off plenty of times over the years, and I've narrowed things down to 4 main exercises, so let's get into it. Starting with the most accessible option on our list, we have the burpee. There are many different ways to perform a burpee, but for our purposes here, I recommend the basic jump down into a push-up and stand back up version. For today, we'll want to emphasize one part of the movement in particular, that stand back up part. When you're in the bottommost position of the rep, the bottom part of a push-up, focus on exploding upwards back onto your feet by simultaneously pushing the ground away with your hands and jumping forward with your feet. Try to get as much air as you can, and if your joints don't mind it, I like to imagine I'm striking the ground a bit with my feet. As with any max power movement, and particularly now when the rage is high, we want low reps, high sets. I found sets of 3, working my way up to 60 reps or so, give or take depending on rage level, is perfect. This way we'll maintain max power on every rep, and our lungs won't hold us back. When I do this, I'll do a set of 3, pace back and forth a bit for a couple seconds, do another set of 3, pace again, and keep going until I'm done. Channeling your anger into a productive burpee workout like this can be insanely beneficial. You'll improve your conditioning and work capacity, you'll get a nice muscle building effect for your chest, shoulders, and triceps, and you'll be setting yourself up for faster improvement on all presses in the future. By developing your horizontal pushing power in this way, you might actually find you become more explosive when you go back to the bench press, which means more potential for lifting big weights. Give explosive burpees a shot and you won't be disappointed. Next up we have the slam ball slam. I don't need to explain why this one works. Angry people like throwing things, plain and simple. Grab a slam ball or medicine ball or really anything that won't break or bounce back up and hit you in the face and get to work. I personally like this one because it lets me imagine my rage is an actual tangible force of power. Arms outstretched overhead, it's easy to visualize all my anger running through my hands, creating a giant ball of energy. Every molecule concentrated on that one point, you slam the ball down hard, creating a shockwave and knocking over your neighbors or something like that. And then you do it again and again and again, until you get to a point where you realize every bit of anger has gone and a quiet calm is left in its place. First, you'll want to make sure your shoulders are warmed up. You wouldn't expect it from such a light weight, and 10 to 15 pounds is plenty, by the way, but this can cause some impingement if you're not ready for it. I also recommend setting a rep goal, somewhere around 50 works well, and performing singles all the way up. I'll usually do 1 rep, pace a bit, do another rep, pace again, and so on. Another tip I can give you here is to make use of momentum to generate even more force. Much like how you rebound out of the bottom of a squat by reversing the energy you created on the way down, use the lifting phase as a way to build speed for the slam phase. If you really want to get crazy with it, you can exaggerate that lifting phase even more by jumping in the air at the top. This requires a bit more coordination and can be tough on the knees if you're not conditioned for it, but it does make for a powerful slam. In addition to being a great outlet for an angry day, the slam ball slam also develops a function that often goes untrained. It's like the opposite of a snatch. We could argue that throwing things down is just as important as lifting them up is, so why not train that function directly? This one works your lats hard in a similar way to a straight arm pull down and has great carryover to any type of straight arm work. I also feel this one a lot the next day in those serratus and oblique muscles running down the sides of your torso, which, when developed, can add a lot to your physique. Finally, I'll say I've also noticed carryover to high pull-ups from this one. It's as if practicing the slam ball slam gives you an extra edge once you pull high enough, which lets you get just a bit higher. Try this one out and you'll be glad you did. Number 3 on our list is the band arm spin. This move comes directly from the world of wrestling. An arm spin, as it's sometimes called, is a move where you essentially throw someone over your shoulder by grabbing their arm and unbalancing them. I'll be the first to admit it's possible I'm not doing this one completely the way you're supposed to in actual wrestling, but it's been a really great addition nonetheless. To perform this one, wrap a band around something sturdy at just about shoulder height, grab the band with an over-under grip. The hand nearest the end of the band will be over or facing down, and position yourself facing where the band is anchored. This one is much easier to understand by actually seeing how it's done, so hopefully the footage on screen will be helpful. Once you understand the basics, it's actually a very natural movement. My recommendation is don't worry too much about doing it perfect. After you spend some time with it, you'll figure out what lets you generate the most power. One tip I can give you here is to focus on using your lats rather than your arms. Your arms don't need to be completely locked out, but straightening them out a bit will make this easier. There's something special about the ballistic nature of this one that really lends itself to our purposes here. Anger often has a hint of violence to it, and the band arm spin really lets you get that out. I like to go back and forth doing sets of 3 with this one. Rest a couple seconds as needed between sets, and 10 to 20 sets of 3 should get the job done. Just like with the slam ball slam, again, this one lets us develop a functional ability that often goes completely untrained in a typical gym routine. Twisting of any kind works your abs and core in a very unique way and has so many benefits. Not only will this help to develop that chiseled core look often seen on experienced fighters, the band arm spin has great carryover to any type of heavy lifting. Strengthening your core in 360 degrees makes your brace a lot stronger when you go to do a squat or a deadlift, for example. Trying this one out for the first time also comes with a unique benefit of making you sore in ways you didn't know you could get sore. So try it out and you'll be hooked. Finally, this last exercise on our list has been with me for many years and is probably my favorite. This one embodies straight up violence and is best reserved for those days where the rage has been slowly building for hours or even days. I've got to be honest, this one comes pretty close to breaking all the rules I set in place at the start of the video, and it can derail a structured program if you're not careful, but that said, it works. Our final exercise for today is the Landmine Highpull. One of my favorite training memories ever is actually with this one. Back when I was traveling in my RV, I had landed deep in the swampland of the southeastern United States. I'm not sure why, but I was really on one that day, most likely for no actual reason, as that's how it usually goes for me, and I knew I needed to get some real work in, or I was in for a rough day. I unlatched the RV's bottom storage compartment, brought out my barbell and 3 plates, and got to it. I was far enough away from other people I didn't need to feel guilty for screaming as I lifted the weight. I think I went back and forth doing sets of 3 for a good 45 minutes before I was ready to calm down. At the time, I don't know how much I actually enjoyed the whole thing, but looking back, I can't help but think, damn, hell yeah. So unlike the other movements on the list, the Landmine Highpull does require some extra warm-up time. It will take a minute to set up, and you're actually lifting heavy weights, and the risk for injury is a bit higher. That said, you don't need too much weight for this one. Most guys will be fine with 2 to 3 plates as we're going for power here, so the warm-up isn't too bad. It does of course require you have a barbell and some plates, but you could do this at the gym in a corner if you wanted to. And although it may have a slightly higher injury risk, the movement requires almost no skill or coordination. This is a pure brute movement. Just strap yourself to the end of the bar and pull it as hard and as high as you can. Assuming you understand the basics of breathing and bracing and you don't go too heavy, you shouldn't have any issues. Let's go over how to do the movement. The Landmine Highpull is essentially just a meadows row done with a vertical torso angle and as much body English as you can manage. Place a barbell in a corner or in a landmine setup if you have one, load plates onto one side of the bar, strap up and get pulling. Take a deep breath before every lift and initiate the lift with your legs rather than your arm. Once the bar is off the ground, violently row it as high as you can. If you're using bumper plates, you can let the weight fall to the ground on every rep, but if you're using regular plates or you just don't want to risk damaging the floor, catch the weight a few inches off the ground before resetting. This method actually causes some great muscle damage for the upper back and traps, but we can get more into that soon. Like the other exercises on our list, I prefer high sets, low reps for our purposes today. Going back and forth, doing sets of 3 with each arm, pacing a few seconds between sets works very well. This movement works quick, and you'll feel pretty euphoric after you get it done. In addition to chilling you out, the Landmine Highpull is also one of the best exercises you can do for getting yoked. If you catch the weight in the air, like I mentioned before, the weighted stretch you get on your upper back and traps is unrivaled. You will be sore for many days, and you've been warned. You're also doing a full body power movement, which can translate to more power with everything else you do in the gym. Just a few words of caution. You must maintain a solid brace at all times. This is heavy lifting. Don't do this if you don't understand how to do the Valsalva maneuver. You must also protect your biceps. At no time, under any circumstances, should you use a supinated or underhand grip. Your palm must be facing down, and you need to position yourself so the underside of your arm is always facing your body. If you can get past the basic requirements, get ready, because this one works like no other. And there you have it, 4 exercises for those days when you're feeling mad. Like I said, anger doesn't need to be a negative thing. You just need to know how to use it. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.